everyone, back to Evermore YouTube channel. It's Chris back with my rant stroke thought of the day. And you have seen on numerous occasions, we like to do a segment that Mark refers to as Media Muppets, where I go off on one about a journalist or somebody in the media, a pundit, talking absolute nonsense. But there is that occasion when somebody pulls out a piece of magnificent media work, and we like to call it media magic. And that's exactly what I'm going to get stuck into right now. Just before I do, a little reminder, if this is the kind of thing you guys like, smash subscribe, come and join us. We're over 8,200 subs now, loads of room for you guys and ever more. But the season's coming back, so we're going to be doing the live show every week and the post matches and the previews. So yeah, smash that button, guys. Come and join us. We really appreciate everyone who's done it so far. It's all free, but if you want to give a bit back to the channel, there's a member option down there too. So what am I talking about? Well, if you haven't seen it already, if you don't subscribe to The Athletic, I know times are tough and people sometimes can't afford it. There is a magnificent piece in The Athletic by George Culkin, who isn't only a brilliant writer, probably one of the best around. In the words of Harry Enfield, he's a bloody nice chap as well. I have met George before. He's a really nice fella. He's also part of the Pod of the Time team who do the Newcastle United podcast with Taylor Payne and Chris Woff, and that's a really good listen if you haven't listened to it already. Not that they need little old me to give them listeners and subscribers, but there you go, lads. Anyway, I just suggested it because it's a really good show. But George has penned a piece. It's been mental the last few weeks, really, for Newcastle. I think we can all agree in terms of, Murdad and Amanda leaving, Mitchell coming in, the changes at the top. Then they had the interview with Eddie Howe. Now, it seems to be two different parts of this interview. And the part that set the fan base going a little bit cookie, and I think I did a video about it. I wasn't sure which way it turned, really. I saw some people say, no, I don't like that. It kind of seemed like the Tony Stark hostage interview, didn't it, on the BBC Newcastle page when Eddie Howe was talking about, changes in the club. Almost like somebody was, in his back going, smile and wave, just smile and wave. But when the journalists sat down with Eddie Howe, they seemed to say it was a lot more positive. And George makes reference to it in this piece, when Eddie's talking, kind of with positivity about what's going on. But there is an air of, is he a little bit concerned about, the change that's going on within the football club? And I don't think we can underplay that. I really don't. X is awash with two different types of people. You have people who try to talk about these concerns and say, obviously the change at the top, how would it make Eddie feel? Will it unsettle him? Then the other ones who just go, trust the process. We talked about you're a Macam. So I sit comfortably somewhere in the middle where normally most people sit, like you guys watching us probably sit as well. And there is definitely got to be some tangible concerns about these changes at the top because, as George writes in this magnificent piece, and if you haven't subscribed, you can't subscribe. I'll try my best to articulate. I won't do as good of a job as him, but I'll try. So what he makes reference to, as I think a lot of people don't really remember the wasteland, is what he calls it, that Amanda Staveley and Murdad Gadusi inherited from the fat cockney bastard that is Mike Ashley, who just decimated this football club, literally pulled his pants down and wiped his arse with the Newcastle United crest. He couldn't give two flying fucks about this football club when he was in charge. Never mind Rio Ferdinand going, he's a good businessman, isn't it, bruv, on BT. That's why we don't forgive you, you fucking bellend. But going back to the main point at hand, sorry, lost it a little bit there. I'm back. But, we don't really appreciate sometimes, I think, the job that they did. In the moment, we were obviously just on this crest of a wave of elation, that we were saved from this parasitic fucking knob that was Mike Ashley, really, who was just everything you didn't want to know it to be. He didn't get the fan base, he didn't get the club, he didn't get the community, he couldn't give a shit. I remember him going was in his own business, and he had to go through the security checks, and he was whipping out big wads of cash, like he was some kind of cardboard billionaire from Only Fools and Horses on Hookie Street. He was just a complete crass twat of a bloke. And that's not the kind of owner Newcastle United want. Now, many people said we sold our souls when the PIF bought us. Now, the PIF obviously bought the large majority stake in Newcastle United, but Amanda Staveley was the person who pushed that deal through. We all said that in the wake of her leaving. Without Amanda Staveley and her due diligence and her thirst and resilience and hunger, tenacity to sell this football club to the Saudis, God knows where we would be right now. We'd probably be in the Championship more than likely. But she pushed that deal through, and because of that, her and Murdad Gadusi came in to run the business side of the club, and there was nobody there. Lee Charnley had about 6 jobs, I think. It's almost like a Ronnie Barker sketch where Lee Charnley would just pop up with a mustache and a hat, and it would be, that's not Lee Charnley, that's Neil from accounts, or that's Jeff from marketing. It was just fucking Lee Charnley all along. So that's the state of what Mike Ashley's Newcastle United was. The ground was rotten, the commercial revenue was in the toilet. Teams like Everton and people like that had gone past us where years ago we were way ahead of them. Spurs as well. So the commercial revenue side, especially with the FFP and PSR restrictions coming over the hill, which has really hampered Newcastle splashing more cash in, the last few windows, and we felt that as a football club, but they came in, they surveyed it, they looked at the stadium, they knew what needed to be done. They did invest in players. They took a hands-on approach in the recruitment of players, with likes of Steve Nixon and Eddie himself. Eddie was key. The best signing they made was Eddie Howe. There's no doubt about that in my mind. He was a brilliant signing as a manager. But if you cast your mind back, I mean, Steve Bruce probably didn't deserve the respect that the new owners give him, in all fairness. He was very crass. He was outspoken. He drew battle lines with the fan base. He accused it of histrionics and hysterics. He couldn't admit the fact that he was just a manager out of time, and he wasn't able to get a tune out of, this knackered guitar with two strings. And all he wanted was his payout, and you could smell that. And he made a career of that payout. You go back, Wigan, Sheffield United, Villa, Hull, Sunderland. He wants the payout, Steve Bruce. He doesn't want to walk. He wants to be binned so he can get his big fat wedge. And that's exactly what he did. And ran down the doner kebab shop, and got a nice kebab with spicy sauce, Big Joe sauce. That's what he got, because he's a prick. But they treat him really well, to be fair. And people don't remember that these two, could have easily just fucked this guy off like that and said, off you go, you're shit. But they didn't. They gave him a bit of respect. They let him have his 1,000th game, even though he was shit, he was toxic. They still allowed him to do it. They allowed him to feel like he had some kind of a say in the new manager recommendation, which he went and told every fucker with a pair of ears. Well, I recommended Eddie. They asked us, and I recommended him. Yeah, sure you did, mate. Nice one. And then you called him that fella from Bournemouth when he was linked with your job before the PIF came in. I do remember that. The fella got Bournemouth relegated, I think was the exact word, Steve. So back in your box, you shit house. But back to the owners in particular. Despite, everything, that we all talk about, the bringing in Eddie, the sales relegation, the purchase of the players, selling the project to the club. One thing that they gave us was heart and soul. Amanda Staveley, Murdad, gave us that. You saw the Amazon documentary, the way they were with the players. You see them in the pitch. Some people think it's cringe, but I don't personally. Those players feel like they're part of a huge, big family. In George's piece, he talks about, how Amanda Staveley would text new fathers in the squad, and I think Murdad helped with the big cash investment for the training complex to make the players feel at ease. The new players coming in, the way that they made a fuss out of them and made them feel like a family. The team photos, the parade around St James's Park, even for players leaving. And there was a real heart and a real warmth and empathy about these two figureheads of our football club, and I think that the players felt that, Eddie felt that, and because of that sense of unity, alignment is what George calls it. That was the buzzword when they came in, but it wasn't just alignment. I think a couple of years down the line, it was love, it was appreciation, it was it was a family, it was a bond that these owners had built within this football club, not just in amongst the manager and the players. Everybody, I'm sure the staff felt a lot more valued and appreciated, than they did in the Ashley era, and I think maybe we haven't fully understood the change that's gone on, but the early signs of it, obviously, in the piece, George says that Eddie Howe was really keen to get a replacement for Dan Ashworth. We don't really know what happened with Dan Ashworth, whether it was him and Eddie clashed or whether it was the football club in Ashworth. I don't know. He said he dreamed of being at Manchester United. I think it's just a shit house, to be honest with you. He wouldn't look out of place at a certain party that's just got out of government. But we won't talk about that because we're not a political podcast. Jonathan Pryder's better than me. Watch him. But going back to that point, the changes in directorship, apparently Eddie wasn't really informed about Paul Mitchell. He seems to be quite excited about him, and on the outside, it looks like Paul Mitchell's a great appointment. But, Eddie wasn't really involved with it, and it also almost seems like Eddie had so much involvement, in the transfers and the signings. There was late night phone calls, there was discussions, there was, video calls, whatever, and Eddie was involved in all of that. And it seems to be, going forward, he may be less and less involved in that, and I'm not sure that makes him feel particularly comfortable. And there is definitely a change within the nucleus of Newcastle United, and George articulates it really well. I think he does say in the piece that you understand that evolution is going to happen, but you can't really lose sight of everything that's worked before. And I think that's really important for Newcastle and the PIF going forward, is that, and it's interesting because Eddie did his interview, whatever you make of it, whether he was shooting across the bow or whatever, but it did prompt a very, very swift response from Darren Eales, who was very quiet in the departure of Amanda and Murdad, must be said, and obviously Paul Mitchell as well, in terms of the new appointments. They did come out very quickly and say how the back Eddie and Eddie's the man and all that kind of stuff. But this is going to be really interesting, I think, going forward. In the first few months of the season, Newcastle do need a strong start. We have a great fixture list on paper, way better than it was last season. But I wonder what's going to happen with the new look Newcastle United when Eddie maybe comes across a sticky patch. Whereas in the past, I don't think Amanda Staveley or Merdad's conference said he would have quivered one iota. Whereas this new set of executives at the top of Newcastle United, how are they going to respond to a poor run? You know, people have already started to throw links of Poch to the job. Yes, that's off the back of Eddie to England. I don't think Eddie to England is going to happen. I still think Graham Potter gets that job, or if they line up Lee Carsey because they think they've got a sniff of Pep. I mean, if they have a sniff of Pep, I can totally understand them getting them, but I don't think it's going to happen. It's probably more likely someone like Potter will take the job. But Neil Warnock's maybe an outside shout. That would be hilarious, wouldn't it? Be like Sam Allardyce all over again. But going back to the whole situation with this, there's a great piece that's articulated by George. You know, you can't forget not just the transfers and the league positions that Amanda Staveley and Murdo were responsible for, but just the whole vibe and heart around the club that they brought in. And I really hope that this new evolution of more corporate entity and commercial deals and everything else doesn't kill that heart. Now, you got a lot of old-fashioned Newcastle fans, or Newcastle fans who have been following us for a long time. They won't like that change. They still arc back to a traditional sense of Newcastle United. Then you've got the newer fans coming through that kind of consume football in that way, where they understand it's really over commercialized and there's not as much heart in it as there used to be. I'm kind of in the middle because I have supported football clubs in Newcastle United for a long time, since I was a young lad, and I kind of picked up Newcastle early 90s, I think it was, so I came through the Keegan era and into the modern day. So I came when we were shit and we were good. Like, we were just turning good when I started to follow Newcastle as a young boy. And then we were shit again. And then we were good again under Bobby. And then we were shit again, and then, here we are today. And we're good again under Eddie Howe. But I just wonder how, the new look board is going to be in comparison to the other two outgoing co-owners that again didn't just pour their commercial nous into the football club to increase that commercial revenue, but they poured heart and soul into it, and that just reverberated through every aspect of the football club. Is the club going to be cold now instead of warm? It will be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, there's a link to the piece that George wrote before. If you are subscribed to that, you'll be able to have a good read of that. But a superb piece by a brilliant writer and very well articulated, and a good stark reminder, I think, to the ownership of Newcastle that moving forward is good, but don't forget about the foundations laid by the brilliant outgoing co-owners or faces of the football club that got us to where we are now. Because without heart, we are just a soulless corporate machine, man. But let us know in the comments below what you guys think. We always like to hear from you. As I mentioned at the start, if this is the kind of thing you like, smash subscribe, come and join us, help get us to the next milestone of hopefully 8.5K. They're on to 9. 10's within grasp. It's really close. But smash that button, guys. We'd love you to come on board. Loads of content coming for you this year. Me and Mark are really excited about what the season can bring for Newcastle. Hopefully a top 4 finish. But stay tuned evermore. We'll have plenty more content for you. Have a belter, and we'll see you later.
Shot, Fabian Sherwood.